Welcome. My name is Jody Craner, and I'm with the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute. Thank you for taking the time to join us today for today's webinar, Brain and Body Group Fitness Program. We're going to begin the webinar with the presentation, and then we'll open up for question and discussion. So feel free to put questions in the chat as the panelists present. Now it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to Lisa Wells, who's graciously put together today's presentation as well panelists. Lisa is the Dementia Care Specialist for Eau Claire's Aging and Disability Resource Center, plus she also serves on the WDRN Advisory Board. Thank you, Lisa, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jody. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you our Brain and Body Group Fitness Program. I'm very fortunate to have been working with a great team over the years from the YMCA and UW-Eau Claire. And so each of them will be introducing themselves as they present their slides. So today, what I'd like to do is give you just a brief history of how the program actually got started and how it got started in Wisconsin, and then turn it over to Pete and Lori, because they're really going to be talking about the ins and outs about the program and all the logistics that go along with it. And then just how the partnership started with UW-Eau Claire and some research findings that they've been working on. And then we'll share about how you can implement this in your community. And I think the best part of all is hearing from our participants, Roger and Shar. They'll be talking about the program and how it's impacted them. And then Pete and Lori will take it over again and give us just a class sample of what it's like to actually be in their class, which is a lot of fun, as you'll see from today. And then we will save plenty of time to ask a lot of questions and hopefully get you the answers that you're looking for. So what is the Brain and Body Group Fitness Program? Well, it's formerly known as LEAPS, and that stands for Language Enriched Exercise Plus Socialization. So try saying that fast 3 times. That's a difficult thing to say, but it actually started as a research project at the University of Arizona by undergraduate students in 2007. And the study showed people with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias who participated in the program experienced improved physical fitness and mood and increased social involvement. So what the program did is it matched older adults with Alzheimer's disease or related dementias to a volunteer from the community who would then exercise with them, provide language and brain health exercises, and then accompany them on outings in the community for social enjoyment. So volunteers were trained and assigned to meet with their participants twice a week for a 3-month period. And then caregivers also benefited as they then had the opportunity to just take that time to refresh, rest, or complete tasks while their person was with that volunteer. And then in 2015, LEAPS was then implemented in Wisconsin communities through the Wisconsin Department of Health Services and their Dementia Care Specialist program. And so as a Dementia Care Specialist myself, we were given training on how to provide the program in our community. And so for interested participants and their caregivers, then there was a certain criteria to meet. So what we had to do as a dementia care specialist is we had to do a physical activity assessment. We had to work with a physical therapist to create activity plan for them. We had to get permission from their physician to proceed. In addition, we also had to find a volunteer for each participant who was interested and then train them. So as you can imagine, it was a lot of work and it took quite a bit of time to implement, but still it was a wonderful program. And I managed to have several individuals go through the in-home program. In 2016, the YMCA became a dementia-friendly business, and they were very eager to learn more about how they could help and implement programs at the Y for people living with dementia and their care partners, because they were seeing more people at the Y that were living with dementia. So in 2017, the Y actually approached me and asked what programs could possibly be implemented for their participants. And right away, I thought about the LEAPS program. However, at that time, of course, it was a program for people in the home and not a group setting. So I approached the Department of Health Services to see if we could make it a group setting, and I was given the okay. And so then at that time, I met with Pete and Lori. and a few others at the time, and provided the volunteer training and purchased the supplies, had our first group session from January to April of 2018 at the Y. And so it began. We met twice a week for an hour and a half for 12 weeks. And due to the growth and accessibility of the program, we moved it from the Y to the Chippewa Valley Museum. There was great space. We had places to keep our supplies. It was quiet. It was a very calming environment. So it was a great location. And so we then ended up doing really 2 sessions. So we did a fall winter session and then a winter spring. And then again, due to the growth, we had some summer sessions. But then, of course, what happened in 2020? COVID hit. And what do we do now? Well, Pete and Lori, they took it to Zoom, and all the other programs we had weren't working via Zoom, but this program was very strong and it continued throughout the pandemic. And Pete and Lori will share a little bit more about that in just a minute. But then we decided, after COVID hit, meeting back in person again, we found a local church. And again, great space, accessibility, great kitchen area, and the best part of all, there was no cost to the room or space. And so we're currently meeting at one of our churches. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Pete and Lori to share more about the program and the logistics.
Well, hi there. So I'm Lori Pettis, and I've been at the YMCA for over 25 years. And like Lisa mentioned, she approached Pete and myself a few years back. My role at the YMCA is program coordinator for this wonderful program, along with a cancer survivor program called the Livestrong program. I'm a board certified health coach, and I'm also a personal trainer. But this by far has been one of the most enjoyable experiences of my life. But I'll kind of let Pete introduce himself here.
My name is, my name is Pete Fashing. I have been at the Y for a little over 16 years. Mainly I was working in the fitness department until Lori approached me and asked if I'd be interested in working in the Livestrong program with her as an instructor, and I jumped at the chance. That's a great program as well. And then when this started, I jumped on board with it. So we've been instructing this together for since the inception, and I can't say enough how enjoyable it is, as well as we get so much out of the program. Just seeing our participants and how they're growing and how they're doing just makes us feel really good. So it's a fun program. Because I think we've been working together for so long, we maybe act a little goofy sometimes, and it works with us. Mm-hmm. We banter back and forth, as well as banter back and forth with the participants. But anyhow, it's a great program. We have a lot of fun, and I'm just so happy to be involved in it.
As far as training, Lisa kind of touched base. We initially went through just some sit-down training with her on the LEAPS program, just to get that background of dementia training and how to communicate with those with dementia. But in addition to that, we are often asked, well, if somebody wants to lead this program, what kind of training should that person have outside of that? And I would, venture to say some sort of background in working with active older adults, whether it's silver sneakers, or maybe you have a health department person who was trained through Wisconsin Institute of Health, where they're doing strong bones, or a personal trainer, or some such credentials experience. We're often asked to, as far as instructors, what are some good skills to have? Really good communication skills, of course. Ability to communicate, especially to those with memory loss. And that comes through that LEAPS training that we kind of initially went through. And then once you have those instructors selected, looking at sessions, why do we pick and how do we pick fall, winter, spring, etc. We basically gear it off of what participants want. And what they resoundingly tell us is that, don't start a class in the middle of December or November when holidays are just ramping up. So what we have leaned into and has worked really, really well is fall. Because, when fall begins, we're all kind of ready to get things going. So like a September class beginning after Labor Day, and then after Christmas, we'll start another class, usually like the week after New Year's. And then we will try to start somewhat of a spring class, usually May. So that way, at the end of summer, that leaves like a good 4 to 6 weeks for families to have vacations. And the feedback we get has been very, very positive. And like Lisa mentioned, sessions run for 12 weeks, twice a week, hour and a half each session. Each class, when we run a class, that first hour, we go back and forth between language games, which Pete will address, kind of explain that, and some just real simple exercise, movement-based exercises that are safe, that are fun. We challenge them with balance exercises as well. But again, very much safety in mind, always having a chair available. As far as registration, the ADRC, everything kind of goes through them. So people will go online or maybe possibly call the office and enroll through the ADRC. But of course, you get folks that sometimes just show up in class that first day. So if that happens, it's never difficult. I just simply get their contact information and so forth and share that with Lisa. So we just kind of get that roster set. Paperwork. We want to have that liability form, and I sent copies of all these items to Lisa, so we can certainly share those with you if there's interest. But a liability form, just recognizing that with any physical activity, there is a risk involved. Liability form, in case of emergency form, an ICE form, that's the acronym. And basically it's just contact information for somebody other than the folks coming in. Who do I call if somebody falls in class? Who do we call? Also, we have a photo release form because, as you can see in our slides here, we have some slides of these wonderful people, but we certainly don't want to take a photograph of anybody that's not comfortable doing that. But what I also offer, once that liability form is signed for the photo release, even in the moment, I will ask permission because heck, we all understand that some days you get up and you just don't want your picture taken. It's okay. But get that photo release. Now at the YMCA, what we offer, and maybe from whatever organization you're coming in from, you could offer something similar, but the YMCA, we offer a full 1-year family membership for those that are interested. So when they enroll, they get that 1-year membership. So we include that membership form. And then we also at the Y work with the United Way. They're a huge partner for a lot of our programs. And so there's a really brief, like a demographic form that is optional that folks can fill out. And then finally, and we'll get into that a little bit more, and I'm really looking forward to what the university representatives share with the data, but we do a pre and post assessment called the PROMISE survey, which evaluates sleep anxiety, sleep and depression. It's a self-survey, real simple, on a scale of 1 to 4, what's your answer? And we compile all that information. And then at the end of the session, 12 weeks later, we pass out the same survey because we're interested. Does this class make a difference? The reason this all came up, because like I said, we work with the United Way, and part of the grant funding process is they want to know that we're making an impact on not only physical health, but emotional health. So that's kind of what we did. We kind of took that PROMISE survey, which we've used all the time in the Live Strong Cancer program, and then we geared it, we pulled some of those questions, looking at those sleep anxiety, sleep depression, et cetera, and put them on our own form. And that's one of those forms as well. So the university will address some of those outcomes in a moment. And then location-wise, we, like Lisa said, we started out at the party room in the YMCA, which was a little noisy. We had a weight room right over our head. And so every time someone dropped the weights, you would feel like thunder coming through your body. So that wasn't the best. And then also it was a converted racquetball court. We had a whole wall of mirrors around us. And for some with memory loss, that can be really unsettling. So like Lisa mentioned, we were able to transition to the museum, wonderful space, quiet, nice kitchen, but then COVID came, and we'll talk a little bit more about COVID in a moment. But ultimately we found the Lake Street Methodist Church, which has been incredible. They don't charge a fee. So I would suggest to you, if you're interested in working with your local ADRC and you're looking for a location, approach your local churches or other community centers and tell them what you're interested in doing, because really, when they see and hear that we're providing a class at no cost for the betterment of the community, a lot of times we find that they'll either give you a break in rent or give you the room for nothing. But do check your local churches and so forth. Supplies, weights, hand weights, really light weights, 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 4 pounds, really nothing heavier than 5 pounds. Weights are always optional because, we're working with, like, I'm in the realm of being in my 60s, and, arthritis can be very common. So if somebody has to not use weights in a particular day, absolutely fine just to do range of motion movements instead of using weights. We also use little like squeezy balls. We used to use those in silver sneakers, but any sort of small handheld soft ball is wonderful. And then chairs, which usually your hosting facility will have chairs that you can use. And then for the other part of the supplies are during the snack time. So the first hour we go back and forth between language games and physical activity, including balance and flexibility. The last half hour, we all kind of pull away and go sit together and do what we do best, eat and talk and have beverages. It's really, really fun. A few of our participants told us to rename the whole room the laughter room, because you can imagine we do laugh a lot. So the supplies are pretty basic, pretty darn basic. And cost wise, maybe Lisa, if you have something to add, because I know you were the ones that graciously and very, very grateful for it, you bought our hand weights and all that. So I don't know if you want to address that, but cost really isn't too bad, especially if you can find those locations that don't cost a lot of money or hopefully are free. And then of course there's the wages. If you can get volunteers to do this program, fantastic. The YMCA pays our wages, so that's another cost per se. But anything you want to add, Pete?
One thing that we do with our supplies, and I guess this would be a supply, is we have big name tags that we use for everyone. And every day when they come to class, even though they've been coming to class for several sessions, we'll have the name tags on. Just makes it easier for everybody to remember everyone.
Absolutely.
There was one other thing I was going to talk about.
It'll come back to you.
It'll come back to me. See, these guys rub off on me. That's the problem.
And the one thing I could just jump back on is, and Lisa mentioned during COVID, everything shut down. It was really hard for everybody. And we were shocked and amazed and so grateful that when we did provide that virtual class, people showed up. We had great participation. In fact, some people said it was kind of nice not having to go anywhere in the morning, because for some it's difficult to get up and going. So we would have some folks just climbing out of bed, they got the clothes thrown on, and they would sit with their cat and participate in their chairs in their kitchen. It worked great. The other piece to that is once we got in person, because initially there was nothing, things shut down altogether. We had a transition into virtual. So when we got together in person, finally, the discussion around what they experienced was amazing. So you think about how hard COVID was on all of us when there was the shutdown. And I'm speaking to the choir here, you've probably heard this. Participants told us that during the hardcore part of COVID, they literally did not leave their house for weeks at a time. So it's not only difficult for those affected with memory loss, but it's certainly very difficult for the caregivers, because what they said then upon returning, even if it was virtual, but certainly when we got back in person, was seeing each other was so important. Just being together outside of the house was such an important part of their mental health. So I just wanted to really throw that out there. So,
Can I just interrupt for a minute to do a quality check for technology?
Sure.
It sounds like someone may have their mic on. If you do, please turn it off. Or Lori, in your room, if anybody's moving, we're getting a lot of like paper shuffling or chair moving or whatever. So if anybody has a mic on, if you could turn that off, please. Thank you.
And then I'd like to just kind of talk about a couple of things that you went through, Lori and Pete, just to kind of add to it. But I just want to let everybody know too, that the program that incorporates the three main areas. So you've got the physical and mental language exercises and the social engagement. And so in the beginning, in the volunteer manual, they followed that pretty, the exercises that are provided, the language exercises that were there, they use that pretty regularly, correct? If I remember right. And then just with your experience and doing the program so many times, we're just really able to add a lot of different exercises, but all staying in those balance exercises, those flexibility, some aerobic, so you were able to kind of expand on that a little bit. And then the same thing with the language exercises and the brain health exercises. They followed what was in the training manual, but then also were able to provide them with a couple of other fun books with the same type of, trivia and different things that they were doing that was following in the volunteer training manual. So it was very similar, but you just really kind of made it your own and made it even a little bit better, I think. And then anything to add to that?
Yeah, so like when you think about the physical activity part of it, what I generally do, if you think about that first hour, we typically go back and forth, 10 minutes of me, 10 minutes of Pete. So I do the physical activity, Pete conducts the language game. So usually there's like 3 10-minute segments for myself and 3 10-minute segments for Pete. We alternate back and forth. So like the first segment, I'll do like a warm up, just moving in the chair. We play music that participants enjoy. So I'm not playing, I'm not playing rap. We're playing typically 50s and 60s music, and we geared around what do our participants enjoy. So we do a little easy warm up from a seated position. And I tell everybody, if you need to stay seated the whole time, that is completely fine. There's a few times during class I will stand, but I always remind people that if they need to sit, they can. From warm up, we go into some range of motion work, with that soft ball, just moving around, mimicking strength training exercises, but using a ball. So a biceps curl, using a ball, etc. Then the third segment would be the hand weights, again, totally optional, but I'll typically go from larger muscle to smaller muscle. We'll start with the lower body, most of it from a chair, go right up to chest and back, upper body, and then do some core work. And then that final piece, I'll just sneak it in. A lot of times we do some like hand-eye coordination. So holding your hand out in front, holding the ball. I'll tell them to squeeze with their pinky finger, squeeze with their pointer finger, and do that. Or we'll do foot ankle exercises where, okay, hold your foot out in front. Let's move that ankle in a circle. Let's go the other direction. A lot of times I cue to, okay, find your shoulder, tap it. And now let's lift up and down like you're reaching for something. So keeping things very functionally related to what you would do in real life. And at the very end, before we wrap it up for snack time, we'll do a quick stretch, easy balance, standing by the chair at all times, hand on the chair if you need it. A few people cannot stand for long periods of time, so I'll even offer some simple exercises from a seated position that can kind of work on balance as well. And as far as the questions, Pete, how would you describe the questions you use?
Well, first off, on this screen, you've got the book, the 399 Games, Puzzles, Trivia Challenges. That's something that Lisa got for us to look through, and we use that maybe not every class period, but we use it quite often. And all the information that she gave me in the binder that we got, the binder started out probably about that thick, and now it's like that thick because I've added stuff to it. I'll make up questions on my own. I'll look online and look under senior questions or whatever, and go through that. I'll add some. I like to ask questions that all three different groups. One is maybe when they're a little kid, what grade school they go to, that kind of stuff, and then work my way up all the way to the present. Like, what did they have for supper last night, or something like that. So I try and instead of just asking questions from way back when, I mix it up a little bit. A little bit later, I'll give you a demonstration of some of the questions that we do ask, but it's just, we have a lot of fun with the questions, and sometimes we have answers that we weren't really expecting, which is fine. And I would say 99.9% of the time when I'm walking around asking those questions, we have laughter upon laughter upon laughter. So it gets everybody, thinking a little bit, I guess.
And what Pete does such a nice job on is when it's his turn for his 10-minute segment, he will walk around like he mentioned, and he will call on those affected with memory loss one at a time. So, okay, name things you would pack on a safari in your suitcase. And okay, Fred, what would your answer be? And he goes around the room. Now, if people get stuck or just can't find the words, we just don't worry about it. It's fine. If you think about it, just let us know. So it's a really no pressure atmosphere. And a lot of times too, there's a person sitting next to them, you can phone a friend and they can help you. So we really, really push this no pressure atmosphere, just have fun.
Yeah, and if I can add too, how it goes, how the flow of the program is. You exercise for maybe 10, 15 minutes and you stop and you have 5-10 minutes of the language trivia questions, and then you exercise a little bit more. So it kind of goes in and out like that for the first out for the hour. And then you have that last half hour, or maybe you guys probably go longer than a half hour with that social time. So I'm going to go just to keep it moving along. I'll add one more thing about the cost. And so we're thinking about rent that really can vary. So when we had it at the Y, obviously it didn't cost anything. When we moved it to the Chippewa Valley Museum, they only charged $30 a month, which wasn't bad. But again, my local church, they're not charging us anything. So thinking about how much that would cost. The balls and the weights were around $200. Also, something that the ADRC is able to provide is for these different sessions, we provide the refreshments and the paper products. And so usually around $150 or so per session, or maybe a little bit more. I can't remember, Lori, but kind of around that for just some simple refreshments to have afterward. We did purchase some sanitizing supplies when we got back in person, which is around $50. I had some funding through the Dementia Care Specialist program, of course, and so was able to purchase a water bottle and a gym bag for participants, which was kind of fun. That was about $150. The brain exercise books, about $75. And then, of course, cost for participants was free. So that's kind of a rundown of the costs. So I'll move it along. So the partnership with UW-Eau Claire. And so the UW-Eau Claire's nursing program has been very active in our Eau Claire County Dementia Coalition over the years and has worked on and created some wonderful projects and outcomes for us. So if you have a university in your community, reach out and partner because they are great to partner with. So we had professors and students that attended the coalition, and they heard me sharing about the LEAPS program, and they expressed quite a bit of interest. And so I actually had some students, the nursing students, participated by actually being a volunteer in those early days of LEAPS. So they did the in-home program. But then we started the group programming, and then that's how UW-Eau Claire really got involved. And because of our ongoing partnership, we really wanted to find out from the raw data, from the PROMIS surveys, how successful the program was statistically. And so through the Office of Research and Sponsored Programs at UW-Eau Claire, a proposal was written to partner with undergraduate students to analyze the data collected from the individuals living with dementia and their care partners in the Brain and Body Fitness Group program. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I'm hoping that Nora was able to join today.
Yep,
okay.
I'm here.
All right, Nora, I will let you take over.
Thank you. And I appreciate this opportunity to come and share and talk with the partnerships that we've been able to develop, working with the YMCA and with ADRC and Lisa Wells. It's just been wonderful for both faculty and for the students for opportunities that they have. So my name is Nora, and I am an associate professor of nursing at UW-Eau Claire. And we're always looking for ways, as Lisa mentioned, reaching out to universities. And in our new virtual world, doesn't necessarily mean that your local place where you work needs to have a university there. You can reach out, because we've been doing virtual projects as well. And so I wanted to share a little bit about how we got connected with this project and what Jeff Goodman and Lindsay Kreppau, she's from healthcare administration, and Jeff is a psychology professor. So how the three of us got connected with this and what we're doing. So we had obtained funding for students at the university. Part of the liberal education is about working in very different areas and understanding how we can give back to the community as well. So there's a service learning component to education at UW-Eau Claire. And students, nursing students, have that fulfilled because of their work in hospitals and clinics where they do their educational learning skills. And so with the pandemic, we had a lot of roadblocks to learning, and we actually initially got connected with this through, as Lisa said, the Dementia Coalition, but also because Lisa and Lori just reached out and say, hey, we don't know what to do with this data. Let's work together to figure out how to understand it. And so that's why partnerships and collaboration are so important, because we all bring different talents to this to help our communities. So as the students, we had two students initially, one in nursing and one in healthcare administration, working on this through our Office of Sponsored and Research Programs that allow students to kind of go a step beyond their traditional programs and get interested in research, and then they get paid for their time in the program. And so we had nursing students was one that fulfilled through the whole program of her nursing, and we were excited that outcome of her work, which she was able to present at the Provost Honor Symposium. So I think we have a picture of that on a slide. Do we? Yes, there we go. Thank you. Present that at the Provost Honor Symposium for the university. So it's kind of an honor to get selected for your research project to do that. So kind of sharing about what brain and body goodness was going on there. And then that picture there of more of Jackie is a student looking at us with the glasses on, and she and my head to your back, and Lindsay Kreppau across the way there on that photo had a write-up in the Spectacle, which is a newspaper at the university, and also posted digitally about what we're doing. And then consequently, we applied, also reached out to the Alzheimer's Association, and were invited to speak at the 34th Annual Wisconsin State Conference. But as Lisa pointed out, in 2020, we had that COVID problem, so we didn't get to actually present that, and it got stymied for another reason there. But we keep moving forward with that and trying to get out the good news about this. So I will let Jeff share about what the data analysis showed, and then I'll pop back on and say where we're going.
All right, so as Lori, or I guess I should introduce myself. I'm sorry. Hi, everyone. I am Jeff Goodman. I am a social psychologist and a professor and the chair of the psychology department at UW-Eau Claire. I also enjoy engaging in methodological and statistical projects, including things like program evaluation, program analysis with community partners. And so I'm so happy that Nora contacted me and I'm able to work with this great team of individuals. So as Lori noted, the PROMISE tool was used to evaluate potential changes in quality of sleep, amount of fatigue, depression symptoms, and anxiety symptoms And with any scale that you might be using, you have to make choices about how many items you might use. Sometimes you don't want a survey that's too long, but you want to make sure that you're asking enough questions that your measure is a reliable measure of what you're trying to look at for an assessment of your program. So for each of those different subscales of the PROMIS tool, there are several different items that go into it, and we were able to calculate something known as Cronbach's alpha to determine that those scales are reliable measures. Now on this slide here, for the primary outcome analysis, data were available from multiple brain and body fitness group cohorts who have participated since 2017 or 2018 to the present. And this resulted in a data set with 49 better brain and body fitness participants and 38 caregivers. We conducted dependent samples t-tests using 1,000 bootstrap samples to calculate 95% confidence intervals and effect size estimates. And that allowed us to come up with reliable estimates of the potential changes in these measures of anxiety, depression, fatigue, and sleep from the beginning of their participation in the program to the end of their participation. So the graph in the upper left-hand corner, these are the data for the participants' PROMIS scores. And as can be seen in these graphs, there were significant reductions in depression symptoms and significant improvements in sleep quality as a function of participation in the program. And the other measures were not statistically significant. However, there is a visible trend that you can see indicating positive changes on all of these different measures for participants. When it came to caregivers, we did not see any statistically significant changes across time. There were slight trends for improvements. Now, with any measurement, you're only capturing so much of what's going on. And you've already heard about all of the rich activities that participants and caregivers, those in this program, are going through. So I'll allow Lori and Pete and Lisa, if they want, to share some of the more qualitative feedback that they've received from participants.
Yeah, I could just add here, anecdotally, we hear from our participants all the time that how this class does truly make a difference in their day-to-day. In fact, I just got back some feedback yesterday. I put an email request out to our participants because we're working on United Way granting again. And the resounding thread throughout all the feedback was, this class makes a difference. We feel physically better, we feel emotionally stronger. And so we hear this all the time, and they look forward to getting out of the house twice a week. And they get great comfort by simply laughing and by comparing notes to one another, sharing experiences. And oftentimes too, we'll share resources. They'll share resources with one another. There's so many wonderful things Lisa puts out there for dementia resources. So there's activities and caregiver cafes and just you name it. We have such a rich schedule of resources. And so what Pete and I do, we really, really try to do this routinely. We provide, resources, handouts, trifolds, etc., on all the upcoming opportunities. But we also mention to them, or somebody will say, hey, don't forget to tell everybody that there's Caregiver Cafe next week, or they'll meet at the local Beaver Creek Reserve and study beekeeping. So anecdotally, we hear wonderful things. And yes, even though statistically there's just mild responses for the caregivers, anecdotally, we hear such positive results.
Yeah.
And I guess I would just kind of say the same thing, when I'm out in the community or when I'm doing these different programs, people will come up to me and say, gosh, Pete and Lori, they're so awesome. We love this program. Keep it going. And they do get, I will say, Pete and Lori can probably speak to this too, is that we get a lot of repeaters because they love the class so much, but but then we also get several new people too that are coming in that are just loving it. And I think that's why we need to have, the three sessions. If we were just to do this once a year, that would be kind of tough, but being able to do it, these 3 sessions really can be impactful. All right, Nora, do you want me to advance the slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great if you just want to advance it. And I would piggyback on to what everyone's been saying anecdotally as well, because the nursing students and I, we've had the opportunity to join one of the fitness sessions that Pete and Lori run. And I would agree that my mood was lifted. I recommend it for all age groups. I don't think we need to have a disease program going on in our lives to participate in something like this. So I really enjoyed it. And the dynamics between Pete and Lori is very uplifting, and the laughter. I mean, if Norman Cousins, the physician, cured himself from cancer with laughing, I think this is a great program for that. So what I wanted just to share also is the next steps that we get to share this information with other people is that our poster presentation got accepted to a Nursing Honor Society conference called Sigma Theta Tau International, and it's happening in Edinburgh, Scotland, which I'm excited about because my grandfather was born in Edinburgh. I've never been, but I'm going to be representing us and sharing the information that we learned. On July 24th is our session for sharing the poster at this conference. So you never know where partnerships are going to lead you. So I just wanted to encourage you with sharing the word, because it's good to get stuff out. Thank you.
Thanks, Nora. And that's just so exciting that this program is going to be shared in a different country. So thank you for all your great work you and Jeff and the university and the students have done. We just really appreciate that so much. So I'm going to move on to, how this, you've heard about it. It sounds like a great program, but how can we implement this, or how can you implement this in your community? And I think, first of all, I just need some interest, right? You just need to have some interest in dementia and providing quality support for people and their family caregivers. The next thing is that you do have to have a connection with the local aging and disability resource center, especially the Dementia Care Specialist. So anyone who wishes to implement brain and body group fitness using the model and manuals for the program would need to be trained by a Dementia Care Specialist or the Wisconsin Department of Health Services dementia specialist, and then overseen by their local DCS. And I'd be happy to connect you with that person at the state level if you're interested. Something else is just considering your community. Lori and Pete were able to, open up, having it at the Y to start. Maybe you don't have a Y, but you have some other type of maybe a senior center or senior community room, or really any space, a museum or a church, right? To have it at, but just making sure that it's accessible. You've got the space. I think it's important not to have the noise. We learned that early on with the weights and the racquetball court at the Y. So maybe making it a calming place as well. So those are just some things to consider. Also, volunteers. Through the years, we've had a couple of different people trained with Lori and Pete. When with Lori or Pete are not able to make it, they have a couple other people that have been trained that can sit in for them. So if Lori's on vacation or somebody's not feeling well, there's somebody else that's able to step in for that short time. So having volunteers, I've had some students over the years that have helped out, even setting up the room, getting refreshments ready. It's always nice to have volunteers. And then, of course, you got to get the word out, right? So marketing is important. And so for me, having it through the Aging and Disability Resource Center, we have our local newsletter, social media, sharing it with caregivers that we already know of. We've done certainly some ads in newspapers, been able to do some radio shows, and Pete and Lori have gone on local TV and done it as well. So any of those outreach strategies that you normally use for your programs, you could certainly do that to implement the brain and body group fitness. Lori, Pete, do you have anything to add to that, or Did I cover it okay?
A couple of things came up for me when you were mentioning the teaching portion. One part that I overlooked to mention was, we partner off of one another, of course, but equally important is while I'm doing the exercises, activities, Pete is equally qualified to step in anytime if I would need to address somebody in the corner and he needs to just quick take over doing some sort of bicep curl or something that works. Or sometimes during stretching, somebody might have difficulty following along and might not know how to hold their arm. Pete is very comfortable getting up and personally assisting somebody. And likewise, when we do get a sub, sometimes that sub is more comfortable doing the exercise portion, and I'll be the Pete person. I'll be the one with the questions and answers part. So getting that team of people that can kind of step in for one another and read each other. And then I just thought, you might be wondering, okay, now there's pictures here of us sitting in a restaurant, and now we get a picture of us sitting in the trees. What is that all about? So we often, try to, at least a couple times with each session, have some sort of extracurricular just for fun things. So for example, after 4th of July, we're going to schedule some sort of ice cream in the park thing, because one thing we're really good at is eating. And so we're going to probably go to the local park with our lawn chairs, and some bring their dogs along, and we have ice cream and laughter and cookies and the whole 9 yards. And we've been to a local restaurant and who've been absolutely exceptional with us, and reserve the zoo, Irvine Park Zoo, and of course back to the ice cream store after that.
You're seeing a trend.
There's a little thread going through here. So we just really have a lot of fun with this group, and it's well beyond just teaching strength training and playing games. It's that whole connection back and forth between we staff and our students. So we're just really grateful.
There's couples that didn't know each other before class, and now they do stuff outside of class together. So not only are they doing stuff in class, they take it out, and so it's friendships amongst the participants as well, which is nice.
And Lisa mentioned how we do get some new faces, and just a funny little story to share. So we have a new couple, and so we got Michelle and her dad, Bud, and she said, my dad was a little reluctant to join, because when he thought brain and body fitness, he thought it was some sort of voodoo thing, like we would be like laying on the floor chanting or something. So he's fit right in and is having so much fun. So again, great class, and do reach out to your local ADRC if you're interested, or reach out to Lisa for guidance. It's really an awesome program.
Thanks, Lori and Pete. And I think the best part of today is really, we're going to have an opportunity to hear from some class participants. And so I'll turn that over to Lori and Pete if you want to introduce who you have with you today.
Okay, yeah, so we're just going to shuffle around here a little bit, but we are so pleased to have invited in Shar and Roger, who have been just an integral part of our program. So much fun, and when we just brought this opportunity up, to come in and sit in with us and maybe just share a testimony about what their experience has been like, they just jumped on it. They're very, very engaged in the program, enjoy the program, have brought in friends and so forth. So at this point, I will turn it over to Shar and Raj. I'm just going to turn my computer, and I'm simply going to ask them initially what their experience in the Brain and Body program has been like. And whomever wants to start can start. You are on camera.
Well, I can start. Well, Lori and Pete have done a wonderful job explaining the program. We've enjoyed ourselves immensely during this. The reason I basically got involved with help from my wife was, a few years ago, I noticed I was starting to slip a little mentally and physically. I've had a lot of problems with my body, and so it kind of rebelled against me a little bit. So we decided, gosh, I'm not doing the exercises at home. I'm not getting, mental exercises that much at home. And we're not seeing a lot of people. So we did a little looking, and we came up with this, whether we got it online or made a phone call, I don't exactly remember, but we got in touch with the Brain and Body. And they said, yeah, we'd love to have you. And we came, and it's a wonderful way to get up in the morning. You have a place to go. They work your memory. You get some body exercises, which are nice, because without it, I don't think I'd do much exercising. And my brain probably would just go to mush like it's on its way to. So we have a wonderful time, and getting together with other people twice a week, which is really nice. We see some of them outside of the class too, but it's just been a wonderful, wonderful thing for us, and we truly enjoy it. And well, Pete's all right too.
Well, I don't know how many different ways you can say thankful and gratitude, but we are all of those and more. Brain and body fitness came into our lives when we needed it the most. Roger had undergone several physical challenges as well as the diagnosis that was going to impact our lives, which is going to take us on a long journey, and it's going to be slow. And we found ourselves kind of in a section of our lives in which we were becoming pretty isolated. And so together we kind of held hands and decided it was time for us to move forward. And there are many classes out there which deal with physical fitness, and there are some programs that deal with emotional or mental issues. But it's very rare to find one that's going to encompass both. And when we walked into the brain and body fitness class, we may have walked in as strangers, but when we entered the portal, you became members of a community. There was just something about the environment when you saw Pete and Lori smile. They knew you were there. The whole class turned and they welcomed you, that you knew that no matter what was ahead of you, you were never, ever going to be alone again. And so you think about it, and there are people in the class with varying degrees of different issues. But you know, when you're in it and you're laughing, it just doesn't seem to matter. On a good day, I think the goal sometimes is to not act your age. We have a tendency to, you know, if you're laughing, you're not crying. If you're laughing, you're not paying attention to your aches and pains. And I think that even in the most cases when you're searching for words, you know, you can hear, you can almost feel the collective nature of the group as they surround you with an answer. You know, you can almost feel them as together join hands to feed the answer to the person who needs the question answered. And there isn't a goal here to achieve perfection. And there's always support with regard to, for instance, Pete's questions. I've noticed that there is a cycle. Sometimes it will take maybe a month or so to go back to certain questions, but I've appreciated that because as a caregiver, I can gauge the progress that's being made by my husband in terms of memory loss. I can look back to responses that he had, you know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then the answers he's given now. I am amazed at the progress he's made, and I know that this would not have happened at home with just the two of us. And with Lori's input too, I've noticed that effort that he's putting forward to do these things, even though it's amazing, because no matter what the challenges are physically or mentally, together, there's always a way to work around it that is comfortable. Nobody's ever made to feel as if, you know, whatever you're doing is not enough. So it's a place where you want to get up in the morning, you can't wait to get there, and the time goes by too fast. And if there's any way in the world that whoever's listening to this can possibly replicate the program in your community, we would go forward and champion this, you know, for all of you. Pete and Lori, along with the ADRC program, Lisa will, and everybody in Eau Claire that works for these community programs are priceless. So we are very, very grateful for them all. Thank you.
And the ice cream is good too.
You're pressuring me to make carrot cake for Monday. And so, well, need we say more? I mean, my goodness, that's amazing. And thank you for that testimony. So we are so grateful for your feedback. So with that, anything you want to add?
I want to say thank you to Roger and Shar for being here today and for sharing their experience and being a part of it and being kind of our brain and body group fitness champions. So thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you. And they're also active in the other programs we have too. So I get to see them a little bit more. So thank you. And so with that, Lori and Pete, we're going to get a little sample of the class. It's about 12:26, so we still have a little time to go through a sample, and then we'll have be able to answer some questions for people as well. So I'll let you take it away with a little sample.
Right. So like I mentioned, we play music. We find out from our participants, what music do you like? And generally speaking, you can imagine it's 50s and 60s, make it really, really fun. So we just play music, and at no time do we expect anybody to keep up with any beat. I always say, move at your own pace, listen to your body, keep breathing, don't hold your breath, put the weights down if something's hurting, just do range of motion. But that's a thread of information I feed throughout the class. So what we start out with, I turn the music on, welcome people to class, and I say, okay, let's just get these aching bodies moving. So I encourage people to scoot up in their class, to lengthen out their spines.
They could probably scoot up in their chair.
Scoot up, yeah, see, here we go again. So scoot up in your chair, yeah. Circle those shoulders around. And then we'll circle them the other way for a moment or two. And then right off the bat, I'll say, okay, let's find our shoulders. Find those shoulders and let's reach up to the ceiling as you can. Listening to that great music, breathing in, breathing out. Some will move straight to the ceiling. Some are going to have to move forward because going up is painful. So we honor where our bodies are that day. All good. And then I'll say, okay, let's bring our arms down by our side and pretend we're holding a magazine under each arm. So you're holding those elbows in, and you can do a bicep curl. Let's just move those arms in a bicep curl. So we're doing this from a seated position and just moving at your own pace, warming things up. Now then, just imagine for a moment, you can see my legs. It's kind of hard to see my legs at this point, but okay, as you sit there in their chair, pick a foot out and just step forward and back with that foot. So we're getting that leg moving. You're thinking about that muscle. So we're connecting that mind and body, okay? And then we're going to switch legs. Let's think about that second leg, that step forward and back. And I'll offer out, if you're comfortable doing so, if you want to take it to the next step, you can lift and lower that lower leg. Don't have to. If you feel that hurts your knee, then you're going to continue just stepping forward and back. So all sorts of things. So like Lisa mentioned, we'll do like 10 minutes of warm up. People take it to questions, come back to me. I'll do 10 minutes of ball work where again, we're moving that ball around, doing bicep curls, shoulder presses. I'll even hold a ball between my legs and squeeze my legs together and release and contract to work leg muscles. As I sit here and my legs are bent, I'll say, okay, let's pick a leg out. Let's step out with one leg. If you're stepping out of your car, you open your car door up and you got to step out towards the curb, bring that leg in. So we want to strengthen those hips. So down the pike, when we get the weights out at that second or third segment, you can add hand weights to any of these motions. So what we've done then is we've rehearsed these motions. And then when we get to the hand weights, we've already done those motions. We're just simply going to hold hand weights. So that really works well. And then at that third segment, balance work, I'm just going to stand up here next to my chair so you can kind of see the general gist of it. I'll tell everybody to stand by their chair. Hand on your chair, hold on as much as you want the whole time, or maybe fingertips or a fingertip. If you choose to let go, you're always close enough to grab the chair. So we'll work a lot on dynamic balance, which simply means maintaining your balance while you're moving. So for example, I'll say, okay, hold on to your chair. Let's find that outside leg, and we're just going to step forward and back. So just imagine my foot stepping forward and back. And maybe I'll say you're feeling super stable, you feel great. So what you can do is pick a knee up when you come back. So you can play with it that way. Likewise, I'll take the same motion, but go sideways, step out and come back. So landing, so shifting that body weight into that moving leg. So all sorts of different things. And then static balance, where you're holding still, you can ask participants, okay, you're standing here by your chair, take your outside foot and just step forward and stand there. So maybe your feet are split apart and staggered. That's where you feel slightly tippy. Maybe you can line your feet up. Maybe you can touch your toe to your heel like you're on a balance beam. I'm always cueing, where's your chair? Hold on to that chair. So all sorts of balance exercises. And then finally at that third segment of activity, just going back to some of the stretches we did in warm up. So we'll start with the leg. I'll put a leg out in front, kind of lean over that leg, open up the hamstring, breathing, cueing, breathing, coming back up. We'll do a lot of stretches through the neck and back because, you know, as we age, we all tend to get more forward head posture. I'm guilty of it myself. So I'll say, okay, everybody, pretend you have a string running through your spine. We're going to pull that string up, sit up in our chairs, shoulders back and down. Let's tip our chins down, hold it there for 10 seconds or so, turn it to the side, tip it down, hold it 10 seconds or so, you know, both sides, and then range of motion, left to right, right to left. So getting that back to open up. And then taking that big breath in, holding hands up on top, dropping arms out to the front. You can pause right here, cueing, breathing again. It's really easy to hold your breath. Keep breathing. You're going to reach forward. You're going to tuck your chin and drop your shoulders. So this is a good stretch for computer people too. This is like what I love to do. They open up that upper back and neck area. So basically then again, we start with warm up. We go range of motion using a squishy ball. Next segment, we'll use hand weights as an option, and sum it all up, we'll do a little balance work, little stretch work. And the in between, Pete's doing his shtick, which is what, Pete?
Exactly this. All right, so there's, like I mentioned earlier, I ask different questions and I try and, you know, maybe do some from when they're kids, so they get way back when, and then maybe in high school or college or their first job, that kind of stuff. And then some stuff that would be relevant anytime. So most of you are fortunate because the only pictures I can see are Lisa, Jeff, and Nora. So they are going to be our participants today. So Lisa, can you name a food that is white?
I think you're muted.
You're muted yet. How about you, Jeff?
Banana.
A banana, okay. And we're talking the inside of the banana, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Nora, how about you? A food that is white.
White bread.
White bread, okay. So you guys are all driving down the highway right now.
I had to find my
Okay.
my
All right.
pointer. My mouse is not working. So so sorry about that.
That's okay. How about a white food? I'm coming back to you. So how about a food that is white?
Potatoes.
Potatoes, great. All right. So now you guys are all driving down the highway. And I want you to tell me a sign that you would see on the highway. Lisa?
How far it is to Eau Claire County?
Okay. All right. Jeff?
Exit sign.
Exit sign. Good. Nora?
Speed limit.
Speed limit. Good. That's an important one, eh? Yeah. All right. What was your favorite subject in high school? Lisa?
Boys.
You would fit great in this class. Jeff, favorite subject?
Band, music.
Band, okay. And Nora, favorite subject in high school?
I don't think I have one.
Mine, we didn't have we didn't have recess in high school, but if we did, that would have been my favorite subject.
I was a band geek.
Oh, Lisa.
Band geek. Love band.
All right, now, this is, these next two are actually questions that were in the information or the stuff that Lisa gave us to start off with, and I've used these throughout the programs, but famous last name. So I'm gonna give you a first name, and you give me a famous last name for that first name. So Lisa, give me a famous last name for the first name of Winston?
Churchill.
Winston Churchill, excellent. Jeff, how about Elvis?
Presley.
Elvis Presley. And Nora, how about John?
John Wayne.
John Wayne, good. I just want to mention one thing about this. In our first class ever, there was a gentleman in there, and I asked him, we were doing these questions, and I asked him, I said, give me a famous last name for the name John. And the guy said his own last name. And I said, who the heck is that? He said, well, that's my brother. He's famous. All right. Next one, do the other hand. So we'll talk about famous duos. So, Lisa, if I said Sonny, what's the other half?
Cher.
Cher, excellent. Jeff, how about Ozzy? Ozzy and
Harriet.
Harriet, excellent. And Nora, I saved the fun one for you. How about Popeye and
Olive oil.
Olive oil? Excellent, good. Now we would go through a list of questions, and like Lori said, it'd be about 10 minutes, and then we're going to switch it back. And I will do different questions each time. And it surprises me how much these guys remember what I asked last time, or 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago. In fact, sometimes they'll say, well, last time I said this, so they give me a different answer for the question. But I have, like I said, my binder is pretty thick now of different stuff that I've gathered. These guys have a lot of fun with this. If I ask a question and they're struggling to get the answer, maybe I'll give them a few more pointers or give them some hints. Or like Lori said, they can phone a friend and talk to their neighbor next to them and see if they can get some help. But if they can't get the answer, I'll just tell them, hey, if you think of it, you shout it out. I'll be down here talking to someone else. There's no pressure. Nobody, I certainly don't intend to make anybody feel bad if they can't answer that question. But there's so much laughter going on with some of these answers that people give. And some people really put a lot of thought into these answers, and they come up with some really neat stuff. So in fact, there's one gentleman that gives me the answer before I get the question completely asked.
Mind reading.
Mind reading, yes, yes.
But we had a couple that was in our previous class, and his name was Tom. And he had, of course, trouble recalling some certain things, but we were at the museum at that point. And even though he had a difficult time talking about certain subjects, recalling things, on the museum walls were old blown up photographs of Eau Claire. You could see like a bird's eye view of neighborhoods and the blocks and the roads. And he could go over there and give you a point by point walking tour of how he got from his grandparents' house to his house. And then the university photograph from like back in the 50s was up there as well. And he could say, yeah, I pole vaulted in 1945 up there. And, it's amazing to me, the details they recall, it's just like amazing.
He actually found, that same gentleman actually found a picture of his mom, or his mom was in a picture down there. The gentleman that thought his brother was very famous, he was a high school principal, I believe. And just the first day of class, he could tell. He says, "You were in the principal's office a lot in school, weren't you?" But we got together, we got really close, and the last class. Well, first off, maybe 6 classes in, he raised his hand and said, can I say something to everybody here? We said, sure, go ahead. So he stood up and he turned around, he looked at everybody, he said, I just want you guys to know I have not laughed this much in years. So thank you. And towards the end of the class, sometimes we would just get up and walk around the room just to kind of cool down a little bit. And he was walking with me and he put his arm around me and he says, Pete, I just want you to know I love you like a son. It was just so special. The relationships that we make with these people are unlike any other relationships. It's so much fun. We get more or just as much out of this than the participants do. What did I just say?
I don't know.
We get just as much out of this as the participants do, if not more. So,
but I think this goes to, picking your instructors. I mean, certainly no age discrimination intended, but you do want people that can be relatable, that have really are at ease of communicating with older adults and with each other and have a sense of humor and don't take themselves too seriously, because we've kind of conquered that one.
We save chairs out in the group. We save chairs for ourselves, so we will sit there once in a while too and join the group.
So yes,
Right.
that's our 2 cents.
Thank you so much for that. That was fun. And as you can see, why our program is so successful. And so I think we're finished, Jody. So if there are anything in the chat or people want to ask questions, I think we've got time to do that now.
We do have time. And if maybe you want to stop sharing your screen and we can get a full picture of everybody. There are a couple questions and comments in the chat that I'll go through. Once we get through them, if you have a question and you'd like to ask it live, just raise your hand using the emoji and you'll surface up to the top of the list and we'll see that. So the first question, or more like a comment, was about the nature, is it a free? And it is a free to the participants. And so then their comment was that it would probably be great then if you use a library or community rooms for this, because it is free for the participants. So it gives you more latitude in terms of where you can offer the class. There is a question, can you ask for donations for the class, or have you done that, or you thought about that?
You know, I think donations, that'd be great. And actually we have gotten over the years, I have gotten some donations that I've been able to utilize that. Also sponsorships, you could certainly ask for sponsorships as well.
Excellent. Can a dementia care specialist facilitate the program themselves, or do you have to have the person doing the class have a physical fitness background?
So here's my thought on that. As a dementia care specialist, we have a lot on our plate. We are doing a lot of different things, and that's the beauty of this program, is being able to implement it and I pass the baton and have somebody else do it in the community. So we probably can do the program if you want, but I highly recommend partnering and having somebody like Pete and Lori or YMCA or other organization actually do the program.
Great, thank you. The next question goes about the participants. Are there criteria? So is there a guideline for a level of cognitive abilities, like someone has to, have like mild cognitive impairment or just concern about their cognition? And then the same question in terms of the physical abilities.
So when we had the program when it was in the home, there was criteria for that. But with the group setting, the only criteria is memory loss. We don't ask for a diagnosis. That just doesn't matter.
And later on, there's a question. So is it all in dyads that there's 2 people that come to the class, or can individuals come solo?
So people can come if they're able to. For people living with mild cognitive impairment or memory loss or dementia, if they're able to come and be independent, they certainly can. I think for a while, Lori and Pete, we had Shannon who was coming, and she was coming in by herself, but it really is for caregivers to come and participate as well.
Okay.
And Lori and
And
Pete,
then,
if you want to add anything more to that.
Yeah, we currently have a gal, Marilyn, who comes by herself, and like Lisa said, Marilyn lives with mild cognitive impairment, but is very capable and comfortable coming to class by herself. So yes, the answer to that, like Lisa said, is yes, you can, but we do encourage caregivers to attend as well.
We also had, I guess it was at one time, Shannon was one of them, but there was another gentleman that used the ADRC ride program. So that they didn't come with a caregiver, but they had ADRC provided a ride for them.
do you allow caregivers who maybe no longer has their care receiver maybe alive, or they're not in the picture? Are caregivers allowed to continue in the group?
Well, I don't think we've had that, and we probably would, if they really love it. I don't. If we've got the space, I don't see why we would turn them down. But it primarily really is for that person with dementia and their caregiver. But I would say I don't want to turn anybody away. if Pete, Laurie, I don't know how you feel about that, but that's what I
exactly
think.
how we feel. I mean, in fact, we've had caregivers where maybe the loved one had to be placed in a care facility and the caregiver continued coming and it was wonderful. So we don't turn people away. Certainly.
Okay, great, thank you. And then the next one in the chat is the breakdown of the activity and the materials. It sounds like that's all in writing and they would just contact you, Lisa, to get that?
So if they're a dementia care specialist, you know, they could certainly contact me. If you're outside of the DCS world, you know, try to contact your local ADRC or DCS. If you are a dementia care specialist and you're not trained, then you know Kristen Felton, who is at the state level, and you can contact her and she would be able to provide the training. But I've got, if you're outside the ADRC and DCS world, you can contact me and I can get you that information.
Excellent, thank you. And then this webinar is recorded and will be on the WDRN website once I get our tech people to get it together after the program. That was a question in the chat, and I'll put the link in at the end again. And then the next question, has this program been shared with other YMCAs and are other ADRCs doing this project?
Well, I know we don't. I know, I believe we are the only YMCA doing this, but I can't speak to what Lisa might have at her end as far as that information.
I think that La Crosse may also be working with their local YMCA, and I know in Chippewa Dun, they tried to do it during COVID, but it didn't work, and I don't know where they're at right now.
Okay, and Walter, did I finish answering your question? Do you want to unmute if I missed any parts of it? Looks like you're looking for
my question was, was it shared with other YMCAs and other ADRC offices? Because, as you know, in the Fox Valley Memory Project here, we work with YMCAs in the Fox Cities in Appleton and Neenah and Menasha, Kimberly, with Fox Valley Memory Project programs like MindWorks and Memory Links and memory cafes. And I think this would be an excellent addition to the programs that we offer are already in cooperation with the Ys. That's why I asked the question, has that gone out to the YMCA network? I mean, I know Lisa very well, and I know that, you know, we can contact our ADRC offices here in Allegheny County and Winnebago County to get it started.
Excellent. Thank you for the question, Walter. Then there's a connection regarding, you know, getting introduced to individuals and individuals using other programming. And so the question is this an entry program for many people? They start in this program and then you see them go into other programs like our participants today, or do they start in other programs and then go into this one? How do they kind of connect?
Well, I know that there's a lot of people in this program that don't attend the other programs, and kind of vice versa. So I don't know. I wouldn't say it's maybe it could be a really nice entryway into things, but I think it's kind of all over the place. I don't know if that's a good answer, but I don't know if Pete and Laurie have anything to add, but I know that Pete and Laurie do share all the other programs that we do with all of their class participants, so they're aware. But again, I get the registrations, and so I'll see people that I've never come across before that are in the program.
And like what Lisa said, is I will share people also resources related to dementia support systems and classes and programs. But what we notice very regularly is the discussion that goes on amongst all the participants saying, hey, you know, you all should think about coming to next Tuesday's such and such event. So there's a lot of crosstalk in class about upcoming programs and classes. So we notice that folks seem to be attending this class, of course, and then kind of dipping their toes into other classes and really enjoying them. And I know Pete and I really try to keep everybody informed as far as what's coming up.
What did you guys make at that last class?
We made butter.
They were making butter at the last class.
Well, that was the Memory Cafe. So Roger and Shar come to the Memory Cafe. Yeah.
There was several people in class talking about that.
That's really excellent. The organic connecting and networking is just so powerful in a like with the situation. So that's awesome. There's a lot of kudos and acknowledgement of the poster being accepted. And so good for you for spreading the word about an exceptional program. There were some people that liked the questions, and so they started participating. So good for those in the chat that did that. Additional question is, do you have a brochure about the advertising of the class that you'd be willing to share so that folks can look at the verbiage of it?
Yes, I will share that with you, Jody, so you can send it out with the PowerPoint.
And is it okay if I post it with the link for the, on the website? Perfect. And then is there a protocol or training that you need to go through in order to do this?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, if you want to use the Brain and Body Group Fitness logo and our manuals that we have, you do have to go through either your local Dementia Care Specialist. And if the DCS is not trained, then they would get the training through Kristen Felton, who is at the state level at the Wisconsin Department of Health Services.
Perfect. I'm going to be putting in the chat, and I'm wondering, Lisa, if you would maybe put your email address in there for folks. I'm also putting in there a couple pieces of information about where the recording is going to be, and then the PowerPoint and the brochure that you reference. I also wanted to just mention before we finish taking questions is that we do an evaluation. It's very brief, very quick. It'll take maybe 2 minutes tops to do that, but we always look for feedback about the different webinars we're having and additional ideas. So if you could take them, like I said, 2 minutes to do it, that'd be great. I think we've gone through all the chat questions. If I missed yours, let me know. Otherwise, raise your hand like Nora's doing. Nora, feel free to go.
I just wanted to say, since everyone seems to be so welcoming, come to this program. This is great. But is there some criteria that a person has that this program wouldn't be appropriate for them? Just wondering. Thanks.
Well, I can say that, when we did the program in the in-home program, it was not for people living with the behavioral variant of frontotemporal dementia. So, we haven't really actually talked about that, Pete and Lori, and we haven't had anybody that really wouldn't have been appropriate for the program. But one of the things that I do is that, I look at the registrations. A lot of times people will call me that want to register, and I'll kind of talk with them, ask them just some simple questions, see if that sounds like a good fit. But really, we've had people, with no diagnosis all the way up until some of the later stages. I think we had a couple people that were actually moved into a facility, and the daughter would go and take her out and bring her every week. So if that answers the question, Nora.
So the care partner scenario is what kind of allows it to have some endurance for an individual living with maybe a progressive condition.
Correct. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Any other questions? Feel free to just raise your hand using the emoji or unmute. I'm not seeing any, but I just want to say this was an exceptional presentation, very well done with a panel of folks. And this is just an amazing program. Just amazing program. Yeah, and Shar and Roger, thank you for being here today and presenting. Your testimony was really exceptional. Yes, a lot of hand clapping.
Jody, I have one question. It's not related to this presentation, but it's related to Lisa. How is Writing in the Moment going?
Well, we changed the name to Reminiscing on the Ranch.
Okay.
And so we're starting our program in the fall. So that's another thing. Maybe someday I'll be able to do a webinar about our Reminiscing on the Ranch program.
Great.
But
good luck
thank
with
you.
it.
For those that was our last webinar that we did, that it's a program that Walter's near and dear that he did, and he's also on our advisory board for the WDRN. With that, I'm going to stop the recording and thank everybody again for coming today. Just a phenomenal presentation, and appreciate these really great ideas that are going on in Wisconsin.